Job interview note taking. How to use one of these things to get a competitive advantage in a job interview. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to take notes, why to take notes, how to utilize your anchor to your best advantage in a job interview. What up, fam? Dr. James W. Stalkup, aka Jimmy Joe Coltrane. Let's get started. So having one of these things in a job interview is a demonstration of higher value. But why is that? Doesn't everybody have one of these things? Well, I'm going to tell you that the majority of candidates who job interview do not bring anything into the interview to take notes on. They don't have any notes of their own, nor do they intend to write anything down. One of two things happens. Either their hands flop around like fish, or their hands stay tightly clenched in front of them. I have gone through literally years of my life conducting interviews in which no one brought anything at all to write on. Even if they brought their CV, they didn't bring this. This brings me to my first point about this. This gives you something to do with your hands, right? This gives you something to hold if you are in a chair during a job interview. So the first advantage of this. But there's a lot more. This is the cheapest way to differentiate yourself from other applicants. It is literally like a $1 way that you can appear to be more engaged, more intelligent, more organized, more task-oriented than anyone else who is interviewing against you. This is a manner to keep track of what you're talking about. During a job interview, you can keep track of where the conversation is so that if there's an interruption, if something gets off course, if the obstacle starts telling you a story about their brother-in-law's cookout, and then halfway through the story they say, "Where were we?" you will know. Now, this is a huge flex that you can do in an interview. If you actually know and you can demonstrate that you know where you were, it makes you appear organized. Just the act of writing on this thing makes you appear organized, but there's a lot more to it. It keeps your hands busy. Forget about holding it. If you have a pen and you're writing on this thing in a job interview, it is going to give that studious kind of air. It's going to signify that you're taking this event very, very seriously, much more serious than the other applicants. And why would I want an applicant who is not serious when I could have you who's writing down? Use this thing to keep your work history in front of you. It is so hard for me to remember dates. I am awful with dates. Like everybody whose birthday I know, I have to write it down. I have to make phone reminders. Work history is very difficult. I have a very specific way that I diagram this. I don't want to get into the whole thing because this video would get super bloated. I do have an online interview course. The link is going to be in the description for a very, very reasonable price. You can take the whole interview course start to finish. It'll take you about 5 hours. I cover how to do all of this. But you will have a very specific way of diagramming your work history, so that then not only will you have your work history and dates, but you will have an acceptable reason that you left. When I say an acceptable reason, you will learn in the job interview process that there are only a few reasons that you're allowed to give that you left a job. So this is where you will have your, I don't want to say cover story, but you will have the best way of phrasing this written out. So that way you don't get confused on the dates of your various employment. And once again, more organization, more task oriented. When you get asked about that, the fact that you have this to refer to, super, super powerful. Next is organizational notes. So a very frequent job interview question is, real quick before we do this, click like and click subscribe. If you're into job interviewing or if you like the stoicism, medical lectures, any of the stuff on this channel, please click like and click subscribe. It really helps us kind of get it off the ground. So organizational notes, things that you know about the organization. A very frequent question is, so tell me what you know about our organization. When you have all your notes down about, everything from their organizational structure to how many sales they made last year to how many employees they have to their, wellness policy or a new platform that they launched, there are a million ways that you can show that you've done your homework. But it may be hard to do this off the top of your head. So this is something that it is okay to look down and read the notes that you made. It may actually be better. If I was interviewing in a medical setting and they said, so tell me what you know about our organization, I might say, well, I know that you launched a new colon cancer screening program. You actually made a 12% increase in the amount of people who you screened for colon cancer by implementing this new EHR tool. And I just think that's fantastic. I mean, 12% is a huge gain. But what looks even better is if I say, well, I know that you initiated a new colon cancer screening, and now it shows that not only have I looked it up, but I've formalized it. I've memorialized it. I've written it down. It's good. I mean, this is very kind of subtle stuff, but it all adds up, right? It's kind of like a race car. Like, so you go to the race car track. Like, I went to the drag strip last weekend and ran my old 1949 car. And everything is additive. Every little thing on the car adds up to your overall performance, right? So you don't want to overlook any small opportunity to excel. Ask questions. When you ask a question and you start making notes of the answer, once again, that just shows how serious you are. Not only are you going to ask a question, but you're going to write it down, implying that at some point you're going to look at it later. You're probably not going to look at it later, but it sort of gives the impression that you would look at it later. Cram Material. So this is going to be your cram material that you read in the parking lot before you go in. In the Interview Dynamics interview course, we teach you of what should be on the front page, including your core competencies, special notes you want to mention during the interview, and this is going to help you cram. But beyond this, I also teach you how to use the back pages in this to create your personalized content. So in addition to being an interview tool, this actually becomes your study guide during the season of life in which you're performing job interviews. And lastly, in a virtual interview, this is not as visible, right? So in a virtual interview, it's not as apparent that you have this. It's not as apparent that you're taking notes. You're probably not going to have a virtual interview set that allows the camera to look downward at this. But there is an avenue of virtual interviewing in which this is just an insurmountable force multiplier. This is a weapon that will defeat other candidates in one setting, and that is if you use a job interview headset. Go watch my video. I think it's called Job Interview Headset Battle. Watch that video. If you use a headset, that is going to leave both hands free to leaf through this. This means that on any phone interview, and a lot of screening interviews are still phone interviews or audio only, on any phone interview, you can actually flip through and refer to your personalized content and your organizational notes. You can utilize this almost like an open book test. You can put little markers on the areas that you think are important, or the areas that you might struggle with, or the areas that you feel more comfortable having in front of you. And this is going to give you a huge, huge advantage in a phone-only interview, but only if you have a headset. Because, see, if you're actually having to hold your phone and you have one hand, it's not going to work as well. All right. I hope that I have convinced you. You should have one of these in every interview. There's a lot of things that I teach that are kind of, how do I say this? There's a lot of things that I teach that are very, very kind of challenging to master. They're like, high level things that you do in a job interview that anyone can do them, but it does take practice. It doesn't take practice. It takes $1 to get one of these things. So there is no excuse for going into an interview without one. Probably hands down the cheapest and easiest way that you can differentiate yourself from the other candidates. Click like, click subscribe, and thanks for watching.